On this Thursday night, a heart-stopping moment for Humboldt parents. The man who caused their children's deaths speaks directly to them. What the Crown says his sentence should be.
She's gone. Nobody there to help her. She died alone, struggling.
Why care for the elderly is suffering, sometimes with deadly consequences. Marketplace goes undercover to investigate.
I'm ready and willing and prepared to take on Ottawa.
And does Jagmeet Singh need to win his seat to keep his leadership? What some New Democrat MPs have told CBC News. This is The Now. For 3 days, the man responsible for the Humboldt bus crash sat silently in a Saskatchewan courtroom, listening as the families of his 29 victims poured out their immeasurable loss. Today, it was Jaskirat Singh Sidhu's turn to speak. The 30-year-old grew up in India, moved to Canada 5 years ago, earned a business diploma, got married, then took a trucking job. But in an instant, all that changed. He's facing years in prison, possible removal from Canada, and a lifetime of regret. Susan Ormiston's been following this story every step of the way and joins us again tonight from Melfort, Saskatchewan. And Susan, Sidhu addressed the court for the first time today. What was that like?
It was a heart-stopping moment. Judge Cardinal, at the very end of the proceedings, asked Sidhu if he had anything to say. He nodded, he struggled to his feet, he turned partway towards the families. There was silence, and he began to speak. He said, "I can't even imagine what you guys are going through, what you've been through. I have taken the most valuable things of your life. I saw something coming towards me. I was on the side of the road with side windows above me, and at that time I didn't know what had happened. I got out of the truck and I heard the kids crying. It took me time to see and realize that it was a bus. I take full responsibility for what's happened. It happened because of my lack of experience. I am so sorry." Ian, it was halting. He was emotional. The parents were weeping, almost in shock. After all that has happened this week, it was an emotional punch.
And amid all this emotion, of course, what's happening this week and today is trying to figure out what the proper sentence should be.
Yeah, we learned more about Sidhu and the sentencing arguments. What we didn't learn was the answer to the question parents want most. Jaskirat Singh Sidhu faces prison, but he still can't or won't answer the key question: why didn't he stop? Approaching the intersection, he missed not one, but 4 highway signs before the final stop sign with the flashing light. This was not a fleeting incident, said the Crown, not a momentary lapse. He had ample time to bring the semi to a stop, but ignored the signs. Sidhu accepts he's fully responsible. His lawyer, Mark Brayford, said, "I wish he could better explain what he beats himself up every day with. Why did I not see the signs? Why did I not stop?" He simply doesn't know. Cold comfort, given all the death and injury that followed. Fact, Sidhu was inexperienced. Just 3 weeks as a trucker. It was his first week driving a semi alone on roads he didn't know. On April 6th, his lawyer said Sidhu was distracted by a tarp flapping off his load. He was focused behind on the trailers, not on the road ahead. Sidhu accepts the blame. The Crown recommended 10 years, which would be the highest sentence ever for dangerous driving. Defense argued for less time, consistent with case law, ranging from 18 months to 4 years.
The court has a particularly difficult job as there is no sentencing precedent in Canada for a case such as this.
So, at the end of this long week, Broncos families left still shaken, with no closure. Marilyn, what was it like for you when you saw this man stand up that you've been thinking about for 10 months and talk to you?
Well, for me, him showing remorse just made my heart feel better. It's a tragedy for everyone. No one wins here.
Did it help that you heard his voice?
For sure it did. Yeah.
How did that help?
I mean, he's just a little bit older than my son. And he had to have a lot of courage to stand up and address us all.
Mr. Sidhu, would you be able to repeat what you said in court this morning? He waits now, as they do, for 6 weeks while the judge deliberates. He had nothing further to add.
Susan, after all that you've seen and heard today, what stood out for you?
Ian, it was the details of the timeline of that day. I mean, 15 minutes before that intersection, air got under those tarps and Sidhu stopped the truck to fix it. And that realization that if that had taken a few more seconds, he would have never met the bus in that intersection. And then the stark consequence of too little training. He had a week's training and then he was on the rig driving in areas unfamiliar to him. He was in over his head, said his lawyer, and the criminal responsibility follows from that.
You know, I've been wondering all week, Susan, what has it been like for you to be in the courtroom?
You know, I can't overstate the impact here. I mean, everyone felt it. The Crown today was struggling to control his emotions. On another day, it was the defense. Everyone here felt the impact of this horrible loss, and I can tell you no one ever wants to go through something like this ever again. And the only positive that we can surely say, Ian, from all of this is that change must come.
Susan Ormison, thank you. And as Susan said, sentencing is set for March 22nd, and Rosemary, she will continue to follow this story.
Yeah, it's been hard to watch, but important to watch all these stories and the grace of these parents through the week. All right, let's move on to another story that will concern people across this country, Ian. Like many Canadians, the last home Giovanna Conforti ever saw was a facility. The Ontario grandmother died in long-term care, but how she died, whether it could have been prevented, for her daughter, those are painful, burning questions. She's not alone. Some staff quietly fear there are simply not enough of them, and that those in care are suffering and sometimes dying because of it. The team at CBC Marketplace has been investigating this issue for 2 years. And tonight, David Common takes us inside a facility where we can see what's happening with our own eyes.
Overnight, and the call for help is faint but desperate. An 84-year-old grandmother is struggling to breathe. Staff in this long-term care home are supposed to be checking, but the family's hidden camera shows no one did.
She's gone. Nobody there to help her. She died alone, struggling.
Marie Harris is her daughter.
You're left wondering if they could have saved her.
Oh, I think they could have.
The question, did staff even have the time? Backed up by data showing widespread problems across Ontario, we sent a CBC journalist undercover working as a volunteer inside the same home where the woman died. While striving to protect resident privacy, we find staff so burdened they have no time to take residents to the toilet.
She's been waiting to use the washroom for like an hour.
Unanswered call bells, rushing to wash the elderly.
I don't have 5 minutes. I don't even have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
One.
With little time for meaningful interaction. The home, Markhaven, just outside of Toronto, told us they provide the best care possible with the money they get from the government. But that only stretches so far. Sometimes at night, there's just one personal support worker to care for 27 residents. Miranda Ferrier represents more than 30,000 Ontario personal support workers.
9 times out of 10, you're skipping steps, whereas that might be that day you don't wash under their armpits and you don't wash their nether regions, or you don't change their incontinence product real quick because it's not that wet yet.
Frontline workers have been warning Ontario's government that more staff are needed. Doug Ford turned down our interview request, so we tracked down his health minister to ask what she'll do.
We take their concerns very seriously, and what we are doing in the ministry right now is a human resource review of the what healthcare professionals we need in various healthcare settings.
Many of those professionals will point to a mandatory ratio as the answer, a set number of staff to care for a specific group of vulnerable seniors. That kind of thing exists in daycares, but not in long-term care anywhere in Canada, Rosie.
Interesting. Okay, David, you told us about Marie's mother who died in the home. Did anyone ever look into or investigate that death in any way?
Yes, indeed. So we contacted the home. They have now told us they've forwarded the concern, the issue, to the government for review. Now, one thing, if that review goes further, they'll look at is the video, in particular what happened. Look at what we saw when we reviewed what the staff did after discovering her body. You see the trach line that continues to her.
Yeah.
We're also able, in this video, to see that she was seemingly partially out of the bed, trying to reach here.
Oh my God, where the call bell was. They left the call bell on the chair. They left the call bell on the chair. No one should have to suffer like that.
Now that call bell, according to the home's own care plan, was supposed to be in reach in the bed with that woman. On that night, it doesn't appear it was.
Okay, David, very disturbing. Appreciate it. Thank you.
you.
Now, if staff are drowning in the demands of the job now, the numbers paint a grim picture of what is to come. There are now more seniors in the country than children, about 6.6 million Canadians. By 2035, that number is projected to break 10 million. The country currently has about 260,000 long-term care beds. Tens of thousands are on waiting lists. And over the next 15 years, it's estimated Canada will need about another 100,000 beds to keep up with demand. And as the Marketplace story shows us so starkly, not just about the beds, it's also the staff needed to tend to them. You can, of course, watch the full Marketplace investigation tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on CBC Television, 8:30 in Newfoundland. February will be a big month for Jagmeet Singh as he looks to win a much-needed seat in the House of Commons. But winning in Burnaby South is just one thing on the NDP leader's mind. Polls aren't everything, but the latest numbers show the NDP in the low teens, the weakest since Singh won the leadership. Add to that at least 9 MPs have decided not to run this fall, a depletion of valuable experience. Then there are the party's coffers. Election campaigns need money, and on that front, the party is dealing with a drop in donations and an ugly balance sheet, spending more money than it's taking in, deeper in the red than it has been for at least 16 years. But if the party and its leader are stuck in the mire, the leader himself may soon become a problem that needs addressing. As Hannah Thibodeau found out, for a chunk of his caucus, Jagmeet Singh's upcoming by-election is not just about the seat, but his job.
Well, my name is Jagmeet Singh. I'm the leader of the NDP. Just want to say hi.
As he campaigns in Burnaby South, some say Jagmeet Singh is in the fight of his political life.
It is self-evident that if you lose a by-election, if you cannot win in the People's Republic of Burnaby, where can you win?
CBC News has learned that senior NDP MPs made that message clear to Singh last summer when he was contemplating running in the BC riding. At least 2 veteran MPs told him failure in Burnaby was not an option. He had to be all in, and his leadership rides on it. Another 7 MPs from 3 provinces tell CBC, without a victory, the leader will not have the legitimacy to remain.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks so much.
Despite that, Singh has said he would stay on, even if he loses.
Yeah, I will be the leader that leads the New Democratic Party into the 2019 election.
In public, his team is behind him.
I'm very confident he's going to win.
I'm confident Jagmeet Singh will be a member of parliament and will win Burnaby South.
Privately, the NDP have constructed a plan B if he loses. One possible scenario, MPs choose an interim leader from within because of financial issues and with the clock ticking down to the October election.
This former NDP MP says the planning is simply due diligence.
I would think that's just good, sound management to want to have contingency plans for whatever happens.
We got Don out here too.
The question is, even if Singh wins, does that put doubts about his leadership to rest?
Some think it should.
I'm looking to that having a lot of positive benefits, including on our fundraising and our general polling numbers. I think everything will be better once Jagmeet's in the House.
That remains the goal.
I'm confident we're going to win here. I'm confident that people are feeling let down by Mr. Trudeau's government.
Asked repeatedly today if he would remain leader if he doesn't win, he refused to answer. But if Singh does win, his job will get even tougher. To prove himself in the House of Commons in front of his opponents in a daily national audience. To quell a bubbling caucus still concerned about his leadership. And to prepare for a federal election just months away. Something he has never done. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
Much of the attention, obviously, on Burnaby South, but there are two other by-elections also underway. There is one to replace former NDP leader Tom Mulcair in Outremont, Quebec. The other to replace former Tory cabinet minister Peter Van Loan. Those by-elections on February 25th.
Let's turn to Alberta now, where falling oil prices have led to a blight on the landscape: abandoned wells. According to the province, 69,000 wells are abandoned. And a 2017 study says those wells can contaminate water and soil, leak greenhouse gases, and increase the risk of explosions. So who's on the hook for the cleanup? Well, the Supreme Court weighed in on that today, and Rafi Boudjikanian looks at the issue and who's affected.
So this is the area that they're still working on. They're still trying to fix all this.
Yes.
For close to a decade, Armand Thieu has watched cleaning crews toil away at decontaminating 40 acres of his land. He inherited it from his dad, complete with an abandoned oil well ditched by a company that went bankrupt.
It was bad. You couldn't plow, you couldn't do anything. It was hard like cement.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that bad.
An industry-funded group is paying for the cleanup, not the company that contaminated the land. Today's ruling centers on another defunct oil company, Redwater Energy. It went bankrupt in 2015. Its main lender, ATB Financial, wanted to sell Redwater's remaining assets and pay off creditors. But today the Supreme Court ruled that bankruptcy is no excuse to ignore provincial environmental regulations.
The court's decision means Albertans are better protected from the few irresponsible producers and operators in the system.
Is it a trump card? No. Is it something that shifts the balance of power a little bit to the province's favor? Yes.
So, good news for the landowners. But some people say the ruling could put a damper on investment if oil companies know they could be on the hook for cleanup even if they go bust.
I think generally for most of our members it's not going to be an issue. But there may be a few folks that do find this a bit of a challenge.
A challenge for 78-year-old Armand Thieu might be time. He's hoping to see his land cleaned up.
At my age, I'm lucky to still be around, but you just don't know. Hoping that in the future, well, the grandchild and all that, they won't have that problem.
He started planting seeds on some of the cleaned up land, but nothing's grown yet. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Legal, Alberta.
Here are some other stories we're watching tonight. A challenging evening ahead for fire crews in Toronto. They're battling a blaze at a recreation centre in freezing conditions. The fire started in a mechanical room off the swimming pool area. Everyone did get out in time, but some were still wearing wet swimsuits and had to jump into vehicles to stay warm. The cold is also causing issues, of course, for the fire crews.
It's brutal. Everyone's frozen. Most of the equipment is freezing up.
Crews are expected to be on scene through the night. A manhunt continues in Surrey, British Columbia after a transit officer was shot yesterday afternoon at a SkyTrain station. The 27-year-old constable released from hospital last night. Several blocks around the station were locked down, and a tip from the public did lead to an arrest.
Burnaby RCMP had arrested a person who was of a similar description to our suspect. Investigation has determined that this is not our suspect. Our suspect is still being sought by police.
And the man they're searching for was captured on this security camera. Police are warning the public not to approach him, but to call 911.
Ahead tonight on The National, with John McCallum fired as ambassador to China, what should the Canadian government do next? The At Issue gang is here with their thoughts.
First, though, why does Quebec have the highest rate of prescriptions for ADHD medication? An appeal for answers from doctors in that province.
And in our moment of the day, they line up in Halifax around the block for a chance they won't get for another 60 years.
It's nice to see the enthusiasm of people to come out for this kind of event. We need positive things in our lives.
I've seen people lining up for phones in England, and I think this is a much more sort of better pursuit.
Guess what? It snowed. So we're going to tell you something you probably already know. Shoveling is exercise, but how much of a workout is it really? So to help us figure it out is Toronto Paramedic Services' Yvonne. Hi Yvonne, thank you so much for doing this. So explain what you're going to do here.
Well, before we get you shoveling, we're going to check your heart rate. We're going to check your blood pressure just to get a baseline so we know what we're dealing with. One finger in there, please. So that's telling us it's done. So right now, your heart rate is 68. That's fantastic. And your blood pressure is 106/66, which is also very fantastic, but that makes sense. So you're in good shape.
So you're going to start the clock. I'm going to shovel for 5 minutes, and then we'll hop back in and check it again.
Sounds perfect.
That's the hard stuff. Oh, yeah. Thank goodness.
So let's get you back into the ambulance.
Okay. Well, I definitely am breathing a lot heavier.
Absolutely. And you can see already your heart rate's almost twice what it was. It's at 112 when it was only 66 before.
Right. Definitely feels like some good cardio's happening.
Absolutely. And we've got a blood pressure now, 136/77. So that's also increased quite a bit. And that's just 5 minutes of shoveling. The driveway definitely usually takes at least
longer. So how did I do?
I think you did amazing. Kept going, no breaks. There was a lot of snow. And it's heavy snow right now.
It is heavy today.
We kind of jokingly in our field call it heart attack snow because it's heavy and people don't realize. They think it'll be a quick job, but it does put a lot more strain on people, and people do end up having chest pain, dizziness.
So before you even pick up a shovel, start with a few stretches to get your body warmed up. If you can, shovel sooner rather than later. Fresh snow weighs less. And of course, if you feel any pain, stop and take a break.
A warning today about the use of medications for children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. A group of Quebec doctors fears the drugs are being overused in that province. It has the highest rate of prescriptions in the country. More than 45 doctors signed a letter published in the Journal de Montréal. Essentially, it says, we feel a lot of pressure as pediatricians working with a vulnerable population to solve the problem with medication only, which is not a good solution. The CBC's Alison Northcott picks up the story.
Megan Kerr has relied on medication since she was in grade 1 when she was first diagnosed with ADHD.
Being able to start and complete a task, which obviously was very important in school, in sitting in class and learning. And it also helped me deal with my other learning disabilities.
A group of Quebec doctors says a growing number of children and young people in the province are being diagnosed and prescribed medication for ADHD. One study shows the prescription rate for some age groups is 3 times higher than the rest of Canada.
We find children at secondary school who takes 3-4 different medication because of anxiety, ADHD, and all sorts of problems. We're not at ease with that.
Julien says doctors, teachers, and families need access to more resources to better assess, diagnose, and treat children beyond just using drugs. But other pediatricians say these medications are a crucial first line of defense for a confirmed ADHD diagnosis, and the most effective one.
These medications are able to treat the symptoms of ADHD, just like an antibiotic, for example, for a bacterial pneumonia will treat the bacterial infection.
She says Quebec's prescription numbers need more analysis to be fully understood, but says one factor could be Quebec's public drug plan covers more ADHD medications than some other provinces. Megan Kerr's mother says putting her children on medication is not a decision she made lightly, but it's one she doesn't regret.
She said to me, "Mom, the new pills were great. I was able to listen in class and I could run and laugh at recess." And I thought, okay, even a 6-year-old could understand for her the benefits of getting that extra help.
Still, she says medication alone is not the answer and urges other parents to work with their doctors to find the best treatment for their kids. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Up next on The National, my favorite night. Chantal, Althea, and Paul are all here for At Issue, and tonight we're asking what the government can do to get relations with China back on track.
And later, we'll try to get to the bottom of that weird mystery.
When I walked by, they weren't done, I don't think, but I don't remember seeing like the belly button there, and I like the photo that I took, I can't see the belly button there.
Most people had never heard of NXIVM until this happened.
Allison Mack. She has been charged with sex trafficking.
The FBI arrested the group's leader, as well as Allison Mack. And over several months, a number of charges were laid, including sex trafficking, forced labor, and racketeering conspiracy. And all hell broke loose.
Mack was with the alleged cult leader when he was arrested in Mexico.
NXIVM has been called a terrifying cult, a sex cult, a pyramid scheme, and even a group bent on world domination. But what is NXIVM? Here's the story of the group's rise and fall. NXIVM started in 1998 in Albany, New York, and it claims to be a self-improvement group, and it helps people with their issues and to gain success. The ultimate goal is to achieve an enlightened state, something that's called fully integrated. So far, of course, the group's leader is the only one who's achieved that state. It's also a multi-level marketing company. People pay money to take courses, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, and you can make money by getting other people to sign up. The group has attracted rich and famous people, including heiresses Sarah and Claire Bronfman, Smallville actresses Allison Mack and Kristen Kruk, and Hawaii Five-0 actress Grace Park, though Kruk and Park have since left. But some former members say the group is actually centered on the appetites and powers of the group's leader, Keith Raniere, who the NXIVM faithful call Vanguard. If you want to understand NXIVM, you have to try and understand Keith Raniere.
Our main belief is to have people experience more joy in their lives.
This is him talking about NXIVM.
And from that, all sorts of interesting effects appear to happen.
So according to Raniere, he's one of the smartest people in the world. He claims to have an IQ of 240. He says he has 147 patents. He has degrees in math, biology, and physics. He has a minor in psychology and philosophy, and he's an expert in computer science. He's written 2 books, one with a foreword from the Dalai Lama. NXIVM isn't the first multi-level marketing scheme that Raniere started. In 1990, he started something called Consumers Byline, which is essentially a discount shopping club. It was shut down, though Raniere did not admit any fault. A few years later, he started NXIVM.
I'm very devilish, and I think I'm probably the worst coach in the world because I'm just a demon.
NXIVM claims to be a self-help group, but according to some people that left, that's not the whole story. Some people say that after they left, NXIVM went after them in the courts for speaking out. And some of the most serious allegations in the FBI indictments have to do with a secret group linked to NXIVM called DOS. Some of the women who joined DOS say they believed it was a secret group for women's empowerment. DOS is an acronym for the Latin phrase Dominus Obsequious Sororium, which loosely translates to master over the slave women. In DOS, you were called a slave and you served under your master. And if you recruited others, you became their master. In order to join, women had to give over collateral to prove they were committed. Some women gave nude photos or taped confessions of damaging secrets. If they quit, some people feared their collateral would be released. And in what many people find the strangest part, in the initiation ceremony, women got branded. One woman says that she only found out at the ceremony that the design would be burned into her skin. She left NXIVM after she realized that the design appeared to include the initials of KR for Keith Raniere and AM for Allison Mack. The FBI says that some of the women in DOS were being instructed to have sex with Raniere. Since the story broke, NXIVM has suspended all activities, and Raniere and Mack have pleaded not guilty. But some former members are worried about what will happen next, and if the company will still come after them. Check out the complete podcast, Escaping NXIVM, at cbc.ca/.
Welcome back. At a town hall in Milton, Ontario tonight, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke extensively about Canada's position on Venezuela. It does not recognize Nicolas Maduro as president, believing the election that installed him was unfair.
Maduro doesn't like that. And he is very much trying to push back. He has announced that, no, the next elections will be at the end of his 6-year term in 2025. Well, the ongoing humanitarian catastrophe in the region means they need to have elections right away.
Canada is hosting the Lima Group in Ottawa on Monday to discuss the next steps. 2 French police officers from an elite anti-gang unit have been found guilty of raping a Canadian tourist inside the police headquarters in Paris. Emily Spanton, a counsellor from Ontario, met the officers in an Irish pub in 2014. They then offered her a tour of the building. The officers have been sentenced to 7 years in prison, but their lawyer says they will appeal.
This verdict is not fair. This rape is a lie. They are innocent.
The case went to trial after the charges were initially dismissed by a lower court.
It is absolutely the case that we face a challenging situation with regard to China now.
It's clear that the Prime Minister's foreign policy is a disaster and Canadians are paying for his mistakes.
If you don't have an ambassador, then that's a problem that an envoy might mitigate but will not resolve.
We are deeply grateful to the Government of Canada for its assistance and its steadfast commitment to the rule of law.
MPs made their debut in the new House of Commons this week, but old issues still remain, especially when it comes to the China file. And given the government is now without an ambassador there to walk the talk, how does it get that relationship back on track? What's the state of its larger foreign policy strategy? The At Issue gang is here to dig into that and some more. Chantal Hébert is in Montreal, Althea Raj is in Ottawa, and Paul Wells is also in Ottawa tonight. Good to see everybody. Let's start with the sort of the pointy part of this and maybe broaden out big picture. So John McCallum fired over the weekend. How quickly do you think, given the circumstances here, Chantal, the government needs to either replace him, think about this idea of sending a special envoy, do something to signal to the Chinese government that we want those Canadians released and that we are taking the relationship seriously?
Any of those solutions, I'm not sure that if we appoint an ambassador, the Chinese government in its current mood will be in a rush to recognize his accreditation as an ambassador. So that's question one. Special envoy, possibly, but all this, the angle on this in the House of Commons or in this conversation implies that Canada has a lead on this situation in any way, shape, or form, and that is not true. Nor does it actually have, at this point, I would argue, a China policy of any kind. It is a fact of life that Canada is caught between 2 big players, and until the extradition story plays out, it's not going to be fixing anything because it has been caught in a box.
Why we may be caught in the middle, I think that's fair to say, Paul. Is it fair to say that the government has no China policy or that they don't seem to know how to handle this country? And they're not the only government that struggled here, but how do you think this government's doing with that?
Krista Freeland has taken to answering questions about China generally with the specific answer that the highest priority is securing the release of those 3 detainees in China. That makes perfect sense. But all the broader questions remain. And I almost had the impression last weekend that John McCallum's crime was in guessing wrong about where Justin Trudeau's head is at on China now. Because McCallum was expressing basically where the Prime Minister's head was in early 2017 when he sent John McCallum to China. If trade with China has become more problematic, if the Xi Jinping regime has become more repressive at home, more assertive abroad, and that has changed the Prime Minister's entire calculus with regard to China, he hasn't said so. That's me guessing. I mean, that's me reading reports and publicly available news accounts over the last few years and guessing how things would have changed if I was Justin Trudeau. A new ambassador to say what, to take what stance, and as Chantal points out, would that person have realistic hope of getting their credentials accepted, you know, within the next calendar year?
Because I think, I mean, Paul, I think what you were saying is that John McCallum was essentially appointed to that job to try and explore trade with China, and
he was the emissary of optimism, and we're in a moment of pessimism. I think more than a moment. I think we're in a new era of belated pessimism with regard to China. But once again, I'm guessing. Chrystia Freeland answers every question with these exquisitely hand-tooled talking points that say as close to nothing as she can get away with saying. And the rest of the government says less.
Yeah, and I mean, and you're quite right that the Prime Minister has not been terribly explicit on what we want from China at this point. Maybe there's strategy there. I mean, I don't know that you want to be talking at length about China as there are people being detained. Your thoughts?
Like
Althea?
what would be a strategy?
I don't know. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what the strategy to keep quiet, right? To not try and provoke them further. I'm guessing as well as Paul here. Go ahead, Althea. Yeah.
They're trying to depoliticize the process while at the same time hoping that there might be a political out for them. And Chantal and Paul are right that, you know, John McCallum was appointed there with great hope and ambition, but he was also appointed there to signal that the Trudeau government took this relationship seriously. They were sending somebody that had the Prime Minister's ear, that was a former cabinet minister, and now the discussion internally, and I'm told that Chrystia Freeland is trying to come up with some recommendations to the government that could come as early as next week about what signal do they want to send to China now? Do they put in somebody new? Or do they leave the diplomat that's in there? Do they send a new diplomat? And what does that signal? Is that seen as a snub if they don't put a political appointee? Or does that signal that they're saying things are, you know, we're a process-oriented country. We're just going to be, you know, operating kind of below the radar. So they're basically everything is political, even though the government is trying to make it not political.
Yeah, go ahead,
But what is certain is that whatever Justin Trudeau hoped to accomplish and is China vision of 2015, that's gone. It's gone for the foreseeable future, not just for this month or next month. It's gone for beyond the election. Yeah. And I would argue that or a Canadian government, liberal or otherwise, decide that it wants to resume on that track, it has now become a really hard sell with public opinion.
What is it, Paul, that makes it so hard for this country and other countries, but let's talk about Canada to get this right? I'm thinking about Stephen Harper and his on-again, off-again, you know, hot and cold relationship with China. What is it that it just seems to befuddle us so much?
I find myself these days marketing a fascinating new book coming out next week by a guy I barely know, Jonathan Manthorpe, former foreign correspondent for the Vancouver Sun. It's called Claws of the Panda, and it points out that going back more than a century to Christian missionaries at the end of the 19th century, Canadians have often had a kind of an evangelical stance towards China. They figure that we can help the Chinese build the China of the future that they want, and in return they will be so grateful that they will cherish a special relationship with Canada. That special relationship is not getting closer. It's not even staying put. It's getting further and further away. China used to be, in 1970, Canada was China's 4th largest trading partner. In 2016, it was its 21st largest trading partner. We are vanishing from China's radar screen, except as a place to do industrial espionage, except as a pressure point to exert pressure on the Trump administration, and except as a fantastic destination in the lower BC mainland for money laundering. Beyond that, China can take or leave Canada. And it has taken an awfully long time for the Canadians to begin to figure that out. And again, I'm guessing. Prime Minister Trudeau has not told Canadians that he's begun to figure that out.
Okay, so let me just pull back a little bit and play a clip of Chrystia Freeland on a different topic this week, and this is this emergency meeting that they're going to have on Monday with the Lima Group to talk about Venezuela. Not so we can talk about Venezuela, but so we can talk about how that, or what that says about their foreign policy and what we are to understand about it. Here's what the minister said.
I would say that our work in the Lima Group, our work on Venezuela, has been one of our government's top foreign policy priorities since the summer of 2017. We've devoted a lot of time, a lot of effort to it.
So, I mean, that is true. They've sent a lot of money there. They've led this group, and they've tried to, this is now, I think, the second meeting here where they're trying to do something. Althea, what do you think it says about the government's approach to foreign policy overall, if we take these two events or others? What should we make of it?
Well, I think Venezuela is consistent with the government's approach. I mean, I think that foreign policy usually is basically an expression of domestic politics. We heard Minister Freeland express 2 years ago what she thought the government's policy objectives were on the foreign affairs file, you know, strengthening multilateral organization, being that middle power with a little bit more strength. And here is an opportunity with Canada can play a leading role. I think it's important to note that the minister has, you know, higher political ambitions, and this is something that kind of gives her something to talk about that is also perhaps a nice way to change the channel, not that they picked this particular timing, but it's nice coincidence. The Prime Minister, for example, today called the President of the EU. He spent time with the Prime Minister of Italy talking about Venezuela strengthening Canada's ID on this file. So a migration crisis is huge. What's happening in Venezuela is probably the #1 issue in the Western Hemisphere. So it's, I think, a welcome opportunity that Canada embraces to kind of focus attention elsewhere.
Chantal.
But take note that if the Prime Minister today was called Stephen Harper, our stance on Venezuela wouldn't be very different from the one that's enunciated by Justin Trudeau. It's in a very different category from the Canada-US file or the Canada-China file, in the sense that it is our traditional middle power, let's try to be there and to play a role, as opposed to let's try to find our way in the world order. And the two games are, I find, divorced one from the other.
Well, it seems though, Paul, and I'll finish with you, that in this case they have a clear picture of what they want to do or what they think they can be. And in the other cases, whether it be with Donald Trump or China or even Saudi Arabia, it's things sort of happening to the government without knowing exactly how to manage it.
Yeah, I remember the latter months of 2015 when there was a new government in Ottawa that was fond of saying Canada's back. I think if you ask most of Canada's closest allies now, what does Canada being back mean? Does it mean a sustained engagement in peacekeeping? No, we learned today that the 1 year of helicopter reinforcement in Mali is going to be the only year of helicopter reinforcement in Mali. Does it mean you know, being closer to the European Union or closer to Britain on the Brexit file? The signals change from day to day. Does it, you know, I mean, and I remember a year and a half ago, Chrystia Freeland gave a detailed speech in the House of Commons explaining her foreign policy. And that was, it turned out, simply a sort of a marketing thing to demonstrate a precisely calibrated distance from the Trump administration. If Chrystia Freeland were to give another such speech next week, she would have at least as much stuff to talk about, and she would have at least as much mystery to dispel, because even with this hyperactive foreign minister, even with an increasingly engaged prime minister on these files, I think most Canadians don't know, they know everything's a priority. They don't know how these priorities stack and rank up. They don't know the trade-offs. They don't know the goals.
Okay. Got to leave it there. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Before we go, though, be sure to subscribe to At Issue, the podcast, if you can get some extra content. This week, we're going to talk about this election meddling, foreign meddling in our democracy, what the government is trying to do to prevent it. Look for it on iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/The National.
And up next on The National, we'll take you to the Fraser River here in British Columbia, where experts fear an ancient species is at risk, and they're calling for action.
If you had elephants and tigers and owls and eagles tangled up in gill nets, people would be losing their minds.
That's a weird looking fish. First, though, a look at a story you'll see here tomorrow. We're going to take you inside a senior's home in Saskatoon, where they're taking a different approach to patients with dementia. David Common looks at their fix.
Down the hall is Sylvia. She's off exercising her freedom. And for this dementia patient, that comes with risk.
Oh, here we are.
Amid the hugs with her nurse May, a recognition that Sylvia is prone to falling, wears protective headgear, but isn't prevented from wandering.
In some homes, they would just say, if you're at risk of falling.
Yes. Oh no, we let our residents live at risk.
What does that mean, live at risk?
Let them live their life according to how they want to live. Like, we can't save them from injury, you know, but at least they're living their life and being happy.
Being happy.
Yeah.
It's the time of year when parents get time off from work and find a babysitter for the morning. 11 shopping days before Christmas. This week, News Magazine follows one couple on a present buying spree in a big Toronto store's Toyland. Not today, a family party with rides on the miniature Midway, but a secret expedition where only the Christmas savings go along. For the parents, months of savings go toward Christmas. For the store's toy department chief, months of careful planning. Now, as children of all ages gather and gaze at the piled-up counters, it's 0 hour for one of the biggest little industries in Canada, the toy industry. There's plenty of foreign competition. Trains all come from Germany, England, the States. The Canadian market isn't big enough to warrant home manufacture. Many metal toys are foreign, too. This idea comes from a firm in Nova Scotia. It's constructive, educational, and Canadian. It's cheap, too. A moment's consideration, and the decision's made. One problem solved, and a few more dollars added to the $50 million which Canadians spend every year on toys. But of that $50 million, over half is spent on imported toys, and this in spite of the Canadian industry's ability to produce a good 90% of the country's needs. One worker in every 5 is out of a job, a situation which toy manufacturers uneasily compare with the Canadian textile industry's headaches. One of the headaches, American ability to mass-produce toys cheaply. Some manufacturers accuse their stateside rivals of dumping in Canada. There's an inflexible rule for sales in every industry. Best value for least money sells most. Canadian dolls compare favorably with imported dolls. They walk, talk, sleep, even cry. Their clothes come on and off, are well made and pretty. Their hair can be brushed and rearranged. They're a delight for any little girl to have and to hold. But it's a fight to keep their price down to the level where the customer will say, "I'll take this one." Shopping's all done. Time to leave the store. Time to look behind the scenes at a varied scene, typical of many Canadian industries, for enterprise, ingenuity, and struggle against difficult odds. This firm turns out close to $500,000 a year. It's unique practically the world over because it makes every one of the dozens of components assembled by expert fingers. Employees, mostly women, many of them immigrants, work here. The firm operates on a profit-sharing basis. Employees benefit in time of prosperity, even down to the bench hands, who give stylish hairdos to hundreds of dolls better than natural hair.
BC's Fraser River is home to Canada's largest population of white sturgeon, but stocks are declining so quickly, conservationists have described it as an ecological catastrophe. That is prompting new calls for Ottawa to restrict the use of gill nets, but that in turn has dredged up a current of conflict because, as Anita Bath explains, local First Nations have relied on them for generations.
The Lower Fraser is home to thousands of white sturgeon, some living more than 100 years and growing longer than 3 meters.
So we're just looking around here for a concentrated area that'll have some of these juvenile sturgeon.
The white sturgeon is a species at risk. It's catch and release only. Kevin Estrada is an angler. He's tagging the fish, collecting tracking data. That research shows a decline of 15,000 juvenile fish in the last 4 years.
Where are they going? What's happening? So that's just a little guy there. You can see how sharp he is. That's their plate of armor all the way along the sides and the top. Those are their scutes.
And so this is what a sturgeon should look like.
Yeah, I mean, he's immaculate. He's pristine condition.
Far different from these sturgeon he's caught before. Bloody bycatch from gill nets used by commercial fishermen and First Nations to catch salmon.
It's not just this size, it's the 6 foot and the 7 foot and the 8 foot that are about to spawn. Those fish dying along with the little guys, you're losing them at every single age class.
In December, a local MP presented a petition in Parliament asking for new restrictions on the use of gill nets in the Fraser, something that doesn't sit well with First Nations.
We do catch some, and we monitor our fishery very heavily, and we know how many fish we impact, how many we catch, and how many we release. And almost all of the fish that we catch are released alive.
The Department of Fisheries and Oceans says sturgeon are also threatened by pollution, predators, hunger, and habitat loss. It's working to address the threats. But Estrada wants results now.
If you had elephants and tigers and owls and eagles tangled up in gill nets, and it's a visual and you can see it, people would be losing their minds, right? And you can't see a sturgeon, right? Sturgeon aren't in the Coca-Cola commercials.
He worries these prehistoric fish will be gone forever if more isn't done to protect them.
See you later, buddy.
Anita Bath, CBC News, Mission.
Next on The National, people in Halifax flocked to the public gardens all summer to get a look at an exotic plant, an agave plant, growing outside its normal environment.
I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it was really cool because, you know, if you're from here or from, you know, the more northerly latitude, you don't get to see a plant like that.
We'll tell you the very strange reason they're lining up for the plant again in our moment, but first. In case you missed it, since Wednesday morning, this snow doodle in Montreal has ignited feverish speculation. Heartwarming, but check out the belly button, gaze at that navel, and you see a cold weather crop circle. Bear in mind. This bear is maybe 4 meters across. The belly button comprised of 4 delicate imprints lost in a sea of pristine snow. Twitter has twisted itself into knots to explain it. Did feet make it? Maybe, but that's a prodigious jump to a perfect landing on snow-covered ice. Snowballs? 4 precision-thrown snowballs in a tightly arranged pattern? Aliens? Some kind of tool or drone or stick? Perhaps the belly button was a found feature, say a bird print with the bear built around it. Truth is, we're in the dark about what happened that night, but the National has tracked down a witness. Hamish Lambert snapped this photo at around 10 p.m. Tuesday night of the bear's 2 human creators. Let's see if he can clear this up.
When I was walking by, the bear wasn't done yet, and I didn't see the belly button there. They definitely did not use a stick or a tool or anything, because it was just the 2 of them out on the ice and there was nothing nearby. Maybe they could make snowballs, but that seems likely, but I'm also still not sure. I didn't want to stare at these 2 people having a nice moment out on the ice by just watching them for 10 minutes, so I just went on my way. I never saw the belly button being made. I saw the bear right before, I think.
Yeah, Lambert, curse your politeness, if only you had known. But the bear itself is now gone, blown away by the wind. Alas, no mere wind can erase the mystery of the Sphinx carved in the snow.
For several years, we automatically associated teenage drug use with hippies. But recent reports of drug use in small town and suburban schools means we can no longer type the teenage user. And how many of us would recognize the drugs themselves? This happens to be marijuana in its natural state. Before a police raid on the illicit plot completed the cycle by burning the weed into smoke.
Dr. Lionel Solarsh is chairman of the Canadian Medical Association's Special Committee on Drug Abuse. And I think, Dr. Solarsh, what we need is a kind of primer on the drugs and how you can recognize them and what the effects are. Is marijuana still the one that's most commonly used?
I think just to keep it in perspective, there are two things that need to be said. One is that in all the surveys of drug use amongst youth, the commonest drug in use has been alcohol. Secondly, tobacco, roughly in 2/3 and at 50% of the population. Then with a quick drop to about 7 to 15% of our, say, high school population comes marijuana, and then the others. The other point that we're making time and again is that this is just the tip of an iceberg. We see it because it's in front of our nose, but this is an entire social problem. What about over-the-counter drugs, etc.? They account for many more hospital admissions than marijuana anywhere.
Well, I think we'll assume that people know about alcohol and about cigarettes, so let's move into the first category. Sure.
I gather that marijuana is really just one part of a larger family of so-called drugs.
Well, there's an entire group of drugs which could be loosely called youth drugs, which are illusinogenic or hallucinogenic in action. That is, they produce illusions, distortions of what you see or hear, or hallucinations, seeing or hear something that isn't there at all. One of the mildest, probably, is marijuana. And this includes a lot of other drugs, such as LSD, DMA, or MDA, sorry, TMA, various solvents that are inhaled, and so on. Yes.
But marijuana is a plant, isn't it?
It's a plant. Cannabis sativa is the name of the plant. And the mildest form of drug that can be prepared from it would be marijuana. It's the chopped up stems, leaves, that sort of thing, with the seeds filtered out, yes.
Well, you have some with you, so let's take a look at it so that anyone who finds it
could
looks, recognize it.
Let's see here.
This is the actual bit of the dried plant here, eh?
That's a dried marijuana plant. Here is some marijuana, which is, it just looks like oregano or almost any chopped up plant
Yes, I was just going
product.
to say, it just looks like a herb you might use in the kitchen. There's no...
What distinguishes it probably is the smell and, of course, the chemical content. There are several substances which are probably active in that way.
You can smoke that?
You can smoke it rolled in a cigarette as if it were tobacco, or it can be mixed with tobacco. It can be boiled as in tea and drunk, or injected, has happened on occasion. It can be sniffed, usually smoked as a cigarette, yes.
You can put it in brownies, can't you? Alice B.
You can
Toklas
bake
had
it
a recipe.
in brownies or fudge. It's surprising that you would know this, but very interesting.
There was a movie made.
Alice B. Toklas' cookbook, yes.
Get it, got it, good. I got you. Get it, got it, good. Get it.
That's so great.
Wow. Get it, got it, good.
Earlier this year, Agave Maria, this tall plant, captured the hearts and minds of people of Halifax and beyond. The agave plant was originally housed in the greenhouse at the public gardens, but it soon became too tall and had to be moved outside, and thus began the waiting game. Would it survive? And indeed, it thrived. People lined up all summer to see it, and today people lined up once again, this time in the bitter cold, not to take a look, but to get their own piece of the famous plant. And that has to be our moment of the day.
I am waiting for a seed from the Halifax Agave Maria plant.
I see people lining up for phones in England, and I think this is a much more sort of better pursuit.
I was really excited to hear that they're giving out the seeds to the public.
I have a very sunny living room right across from the ocean, so I'm hoping.
I have my own little patch of succulents at home, and I'm ready to welcome a new member.
It's for my mom. It's her birthday this month, or this coming month.
There you
Thank you.
Last one.
Sorry.
I am the last person to get an agave seed this year. I'm happy. It's nice to see the enthusiasm of people to come out for this kind of event. We need positive things in our lives.
Full disclosure, Rosemary, this story spoke to me. I visited Halifax in May with my parents. We watched the plant. At that point, it looked dead. It bloomed later. Full disclosure, part 2, I would never line up for seeds. No way.
I would not either. And what if you dropped it when you went outside? Anyway, so they gave 150 seeds out because that's how much the plant gave. But our producer, Sarah, posed 2 important questions here. One, would any of the plants then survive? Would this miracle happen twice? That's a good question. And if it happens again, could there be a whole tequila industry to come in Halifax? In which case, I'm interested. Just saying.
All right. And the plant would bloom in how many years?
Yeah, that's
60, right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We can hold on till then.
We'll hang on for that. For that, we'll hang on.
Just for that. That's the National for January 31st. Good night, everybody.
Good night.